Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who always has a plus 10 goal difference. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Always indeed, my friend.
You wake
Hello.
up in the morning with plus 10.
I wish that were the case. If that means me resetting the alarm for 10 more minutes, then yes, I do that pretty consistently and regularly. Yes.
The plus 10 is a snooze.
Indeed.
Which actually has been some people's reactions to the US's 4-0 win over Guyana and 6-0 win over Trinidad and Tobago.
What, snooze?
To hit the snooze button.
I would say that's been some of the reactions. Some of them have been to throw the alarm at the wall, I think, if we're going to continue that analogy. Yeah.
We have been a little more positive. We've seen progression from game to game.
Yep.
It's been looking good. We know it's not the strongest opposition. I would argue that Wednesday night's game against Panama, for which this is a preview, 9 p.m. Eastern, Fox Sports 1. It's the final group stage game. We're already qualified, but this is the toughest opponent in the group. So at least it's the biggest challenge so far in the Gold Cup.
I mean, I'm not sure I would have said that heading into this competition. I agree with you now.
Yeah.
Given the way things have gone.
Given Trinidad's defending.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes, 100%.
So we'll talk about the US and what we think they should do and how we think they'll line up and all that later on. But I want to give a little preview of Panama and what to expect. Maybe not too long. People don't want to hear 30 minutes on Panama, right?
So 28?
28, yeah.
Right, yeah
28,
cool.
29.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Panama in a 4-4-2 thus far in this competition.
Against Trinidad and then Guyana. They won,
But
2-0 and 4-2.
You are correct.
Yeah.
I think so. And but you were making the point that maybe prior to this tournament, when they had played some stronger opposition, it wasn't quite the 4-4-2 that we've come to see from them this time around.
Yeah, so their recent friendlies before the Gold Cup, they played Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia. I mean, all teams that are better than what they're facing at the Gold Cup.
Somewhat.
Fair. And in 2 of those 3 games, they played a 5-4-1. Which is one of the things we've seen from Panama in the past.
It is.
So I guess the big question is then coming into this game, I think this is a good test. How much respect does the US have? So do Panama say, all right, we're going to do our 4-4-2, 2 strikers, we're going to try and go toe-to-toe with the US? Or is the US more on the spectrum of, this is a tough opponent, we should go back to the 5-4-1?
I mean, we'll find out tomorrow is the obvious, easy answer.
Yeah.
I would hope they come in a 4-4-2. I would, because
why is that?
Even though it means maybe they're going at the United States a little bit more, it is the case that we're both teams are on 6 points.
Yep.
So
US has the best goal difference though, right? So a draw and we're top of the group.
Exactly. So then maybe this is Panama thinking, no matter what, we're going through in second place. So let's maybe go to the United States and see what we can do against stronger opposition so we don't kind of break what we've been doing in the first 2 games.
So it could be breaks are off.
It could be.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily bet on that. We established in the last show that my betting record isn't terrific. So, grain of salt there.
Okay, maybe when we get to talking about the US, we'll talk about maybe the difference between playing against the 4-4-2 and the 5-4-1. Or, honestly, 4-5-1 is also a Panamanian option. We've played this team so many times. We've previewed this team so many times. They've definitely played that formation before as well.
They definitely have.
All right, big picture Panama.
Yeah.
They've moved on from Blas Perez, Luis Tejada, because those guys were mid to late 30s.
Yes.
There are still names that you recognize, like Roman Torres, centre-back, plays for Seattle. But who are the guys that maybe the US should be looking out for or at least a little bit wary of?
I mean, Gabi Torres up top is always a problematic issue if he's up by himself or if he's like in a front 2, which he has been thus far in this competition, as we've said. The physicality, the ability to sort of capitalize on like opportunities that don't seem like they're quite there, but yet still find a way through. Because although Trinidad's defending has been bad, it has still been Panama sort of being tenacious in their approach, particularly on the counterattack, that has made Trinidad look so bad.
I think of Gabi Torres as very efficient.
Yep.
I went back and watched some Y-Scout footage of him as well, just to get a better feel, to not see him play against Guyana, basically. Yep. He seems to very often just pick the right simple pass, which is often a through ball. And it's not too many, it's actually very few step-overs and skill moves and stuff like that. He's got a bit of pace, he's got a bit of acceleration, but he knows when to use it. Gabi Torres is definitely someone to not be terrified of, but at least be wary of, right? US defenders should be keeping an eye on Gabi Torres' whereabouts at all times.
Yeah, I think so. I think the same goes probably for Armando Cooper, who did score the first goal against Trinidad, assisted by Gabi Torres. So
we expect him to play centre midfield, probably, Armando Cooper,
Yeah, again, depending on how many numbers are in that midfield, it might deviate slightly. But
be one of the central midfield.
Yes, indeed.
How about on the wings? I always think that Quintero looks a little bit dangerous, and Bárcenas. So left Quintero, right Bárcenas. Both of them seem a little bit dangerous to me. Not like they're Neymar and we have to back off, but Quintero has a few moves that we've seen.
Yes.
Yeah?
I mean, Quintero certainly does, and then Bárcenas has goal scoring. He scores the second goal against Trinidad. We're just going to keep it going with the Trinidad game, because that's basically what I was paying attention to in terms of preparation.
Wasn't it Quintero with a really nice dummy move in the middle of the field for for one of those goals. Yeah. Just let it run past him and fooled everybody.
That'll work. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I think I take your point, though, that it's not as though this is a team that I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's not a team that the United States necessarily needs to be like, okay, this player is particularly skillful. We need to put 2 players to make sure there's no sort of opportunities there.
Yeah.
I think it's much more the United States needs to play their game and play a comprehensive game and not sort of take their foot off the gas or switch off, because I think that's when Panama are very capable of pouncing.
Here's a good way to frame it. Mistakes, Panama are good enough that mistakes will be punished.
Yes.
Right? So if Zach Steffen has one of his Jamaica or Venezuela moments where he doesn't correctly play the ball out of the back, if that goes to Gabby Torres, he's probably burying that pass to Zach Steffen. Right?
Yes.
So, mistakes will be punished. There's one other player I think we should highlight. I think he's Panama's best player, based on my sort of limited viewing. Mikey Murillo, who I think will play right back.
I was like, are you going to say Roman Torres? Because that's an interesting shout, because I would absolutely agree with you. It's Murillo.
It is Mikey Murillo, right? So he plays right back, plenty of pace, gets up and down, has an eye for a pass. This guy can pick out a pass. There was a goal. I watched all the goals against Guyana. The first goal scored by Arroyo, who may not start, the striker. It's Mikey Murillo just being on the wing and just deciding, I can just bend this ball around the defence and in behind for Arroyo. The ball's barely on, but he has the technique and the vision to play it. So we should look out for when Murillo gets forward. He'll be crossing balls in, he'll be bending dangerous passes in, and he'll just be playing nice little 1-2s. That's what I've seen from him as well. He will get forward from right back, then play some 1-2s, and suddenly Mikey Murillo's in your box.
Yes.
Get him out of your box.
Get him out. My
Number 23, if you're looking out for him, by the way.
Yes, thank you for that. I still, though, like the other side of this coin, which we haven't talked about, is there's also a chance that maybe Panama rest a bunch of their players and they decide, we're okay with going through in second. We're just going to give everybody a break, keep everybody fit. And I say that because Murillo seems like a type of player who, if they were going to rest some people to keep them fresh for the knockout round, he would be one, because he does cover so much distance and can be so useful in both counterattacks and sort of like arriving late to be another attacking option that maybe he won't start. So I think that'll be we'll know that pretty quickly. When we see the starting 11, if he's not in there, I think that's a good sign that they're definitely resting players. If he is in there, then maybe they're going to go at the United States a little bit.
That's the slight downer about this game, right? That both teams are already through.
Yes.
Should we switch to the United States? Speaking of where they will be resting players or not, that is the big question, right? So Greg Berhalter was asked this a couple of days ago, and he essentially said, I've never been in this situation before. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think that was in the post-match
of
the Trinidad game.
Okay, Because there is an argument that, you're already through. It's a tournament. There are potentially 3 more games after this, quarters, semis, final. Maybe a bunch of guys need a rest, and that's the way to do it. Certain coaches, you know what they're going to do because they've been in tournaments so many times that there's a pattern of what they do, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Berhalter, we don't know. We're going to find out. There's an element. I'm not saying it's not exciting, but we're on a little fact-finding mission where we'll learn a little bit more about how Greg Berhalter thinks things should be handled.
Yes. There's the interview that we both read with Paul Tenorio for The Athletic, where Berhalter, kind of the consistent refrain is that basically they're building towards something that's he has a long-term vision and a short-term vision, and so his approach to certain games is with an eye towards the long-term vision. And I think what that was kind of revealing, what that revealed to me is that he very much doesn't care about public reaction, and he very much doesn't care about media reaction.
Yeah, because part of what he said was essentially why not experiment in friendlies even if we lose? I'm not worried about losing in friendlies, right? So there is an element of Berhalter doesn't care about public reaction because he's more interested in the long-term project.
But he also had a line about emphasizing the importance of sticking to a plan, not panicking, and being able to embrace failure. Removing embracing failure from the equation.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Maybe there's a coach who maybe hasn't impressed so far but wants to cement their reputation or show that they belong, might play the exact same starting 11, make sure you got to win, and then we're 3-0 and everything looks good. If you kind of go with what Berhalter said, I just don't think that will factor into it. Public pressure, the desire to win and have 3 wins and be on the firmest ground possible.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not a PR exercise.
I don't think so. So then when you remove that from the equation, it feels to me like this is a game where you're going to rest at least a few players.
Okay, well, let's pick out some likely candidates then. Because didn't he pick the same starting 11 for Guyana and for Trinidad?
Yes.
And we did see the patterns of play that Berhalter likes. We saw some progression in that. It looked a little better against Trinidad than it did against Guyana, even against slightly tougher opponent. So I hope to still see the patterns of play. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Which players from that starting 11 that started twice are most likely to be rested for this Panama game?
I would say Michael Bradley is the number 1 most likely candidate, in my opinion, to not start this game.
Why is that?
Because it is sort of what Berhalter has done in other sort of friendlies. When you have the series of friendlies, it'll be Bradley one game, Trapp another game.
Yeah,
but
budget Michael Bradley.
Yes, but if you're kind of throwing the friendlies out the window and look at this more so from the current situation of the team, Bradley comes in. He is nursing a couple knocks. We're not sure about how fit he is, and so maybe he's looked fine. But I feel like this is a game where you give him the rest just because he's got a few more miles on his legs.
Yeah, a few more miles on his legs, and has just come back from the injury that he recovered from. He didn't play much against Jamaica or Venezuela, right? For exactly that reason. So I think you're right. I think we could say Bradley out, Trapp in is a very likely substitution. I've got some people won't be mad about that, right? Because there's a lot of anti-Bradley people out there. People love Tyler Boyd so far. I think correctly. We've been very excited about Tyler Boyd, what he does on the right wing, what he does when he cuts inside when Nick Lima overlaps. He's a very exciting player. He adds a new dynamism to the US attack on the right wing. He also came in with a little bit of an injury, and they were managing. I think the Berhalter's phrase was we were managing his minutes early on. Wasn't he taken out early against Trinidad, 60-something minute for Jordan Morris? My guess is Tyler Boyd does not start this game, and Jordan Morris starts it on the right wing instead to not put any more miles on his legs or risk any more injuries.
Yes, I agree with that. I want to add though that maybe we should have said this up top. Maybe we did, and I've already forgotten. But Berhalter could start the exact same 11, and I would be surprised, but not totally surprised. He could start an entirely different 11, and I would be surprised, but not entirely surprised. Yeah. So that's kind of where I am.
Anything could happen.
Yes, and so I just want to put that up front because we're kind of putting our guesses on it with a little bit of our opinion.
Yes.
And so
don't take anything we say as likely to happen.
I mean,
we're doing our best.
Yeah,
I mean, we're reasoning through it logically.
Yeah,
right?
All right. So, and with that in mind, what I would say is I agree with you that I think it will be Jordan Morris, but I do think it will be Paul Arriola still. I don't think it will be a full change for exactly what you mentioned, that Boyd nursing an injury has also been all over the place.
Yeah.
And
his
maybe
ankle was a bit wobbly at one point as well.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
against
yeah.
Guyana, I believe.
And through non-contact, as I recall.
Yeah.
So it does feel like maybe that's where Boyd sits, Morris starts, and then Arriola is a pre-planned substitution around the 60th minute. I have another player like that as well.
You mean Arriola starts?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then is a player who maybe if things are going well, if the United States is up 1-0 or 2-0, or even if it's 0-0, maybe that's a 60th minute, Arriola's out, we give him a break.
So that's interesting. I think I agree with you, but I'm not sure if for the same reason, because I haven't heard your reason yet, which is fine. Arriola did a lot of running in those first two games.
You just heard my reason.
Did you?
Yes.
Did I?
Yeah.
So what was the reason why Arriola would start?
It's basically... Oh, I guess you did. Never mind. Yeah. We can go back to it.
All right, well, here's mine. I think when you make a load of changes, you're removing players who are familiar with the Berhalter philosophy, the positional play, the system, all that kind of stuff, and you have to keep at least maybe half the team in there for the whole thing to still function. Mm-hmm. So that if you went Jordan Morris on the right instead of Tyler Boyd and Jonathan Lewis on the left instead of Paul Arriola, you've lost both of your wingers who you've proven understand the system. Mm-hmm. So I think Arriola, even though he's done loads of running, maybe still has to start to be so enough of the cogs from the original machine are still present.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that he probably does stick with Christian Pulisic. That may be one that we're totally wrong on.
That's the bigger debate.
And then you kind of keep that left side of Pulisic and Arriola
because that combo,
together.
We like that combo, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you mention a pre-planned substitution for Arriola? Are you guessing Jonathan Lewis just comes in final 30 something like that? That feels right to me.
Yep.
And I think it'll be the longest Lewis gets to play as well, instead of his usual 10, 20-minute cameos. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about these attacking midfield spots.
Oh, and then my other reason for it being Arriola who starts is because it does seem like he is the one who hasn't had injury issues and has proven himself.
He's unstoppable.
Both at national team level and at club level. Yeah, he's the player who's going to run and run and run. Yeah. I mean, he's been running and running and running for DC in a DC sumper, which is not an easy thing to do.
If they're looking for an upgrade on the lithium-ion battery, they should investigate what is going on with Paul Arriola.
It's all the tattoos.
The great leap forward. Elon Musk, talk to Paul Arriola.
He gets shorter every day, and that gives him more efficiency when it comes to the running.
He's ink-powered.
Yes,
is that what it is?
Exactly.
All right, so we were really impressed, especially against Trinidad, with the Pulisic and McKennie in the attacking midfield, or at least more impressed than we have been in the past, right? Pulisic was starting to find those seams and able to make things happen. McKennie on the right was a lot of passing and moving. A lot of our best passing moves were McKennie being heavily involved, McKennie with some clever disguised passes. There's no way both of these guys start, right? Mm-hmm. There's no, just because it's like they're young guys, they've had seasons in the Bundesliga, they're sort of precious resources and you don't want to risk running them down or injuring them. But if they both don't start, and it's Mihailovic in Pulisic's spot and Christian Roldan in McKennie's spot, there's my argument about not enough cogs from the original machine. It's also just, in my opinion, a massive downgrade in talent from those two to those two. So here's my argument to you is, They both McKennie and Pulisic both can't be replaced. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, I think there, if you look at kind of the way he's constructed this roster, that Mihailovic was added on when Dwayne Holmes was had to leave due to injury.
Yeah.
I think, and what we saw from Mihailovic in the friendlies, even though Greg Berhalter says throw the friendlies out the window, I'm not going to do that because I thought Georgi Mihailovic really struggled with the kind of intensity and the pressure.
Yeah.
And I think when
too many touches against Jamaica and easily dispossessed.
But we saw him against Trinidad. He had some okay moments, but he still had some of those moments where like he overhits a pass, he underhits a cross, and it feels like a big drop off from Mihailovic to Pulisic, more so than the drop off.
Right?
From other way around, more so than Weston McKennie to Christian Roldan.
Okay.
So I think
still a drop off, but not as steep.
Yeah, and I also think that Roldan since January has been a player that Berhalter trusts and has proven that he can operate the system, navigate the system in a way that Berhalter wants.
Yeah.
So that to me is the more logical one of Pulisic and Roldan, which means that I've probably got it totally wrong.
Okay, but we're going to guess that it's Pulisic and Roldan in those attacking midfield spots. And what that means is when we drop into the 4-4-2 or 4-2-4 defensively, Pulisic will be one of the strikers and Roldan will be alongside probably Trapp in central midfield. I've got to say that doesn't fill me with all kinds of confidence in terms of winning tackles, but that might be what we're going with.
Yes.
We haven't talked about the striker.
We've not.
I think it's going to be Josie Altidore to start this game.
This is the one I genuinely have no idea. I really don't.
Really?
Because you could argue like one way and I would totally agree with you. You could argue the other way and I would probably totally agree with you because you can make the case that
you're normally not that easy to persuade.
I'm not sure I will be this time either. But like it makes sense that if Josie Altidore is coming back from injury, that you've been managing his minutes, no minutes in the first game, some minutes in the second. So this is the one where maybe you start him in a somewhat meaningless or less meaningful like third group stage game, and you let him kind of find his footing and get used to it. And that is, I think, he did look rusty for the United States when he did come on.
There's that cut where he cut into a lot of players against Trinidad, and it made me think, sharp Josie wouldn't do that.
But as my intonation is suggesting, there's a but coming, which is that he also didn't look particularly fit in that game. His hold-up play was okay, but he still struggled at times. And with that in mind, I don't know where his fitness is. I don't know if he can go 45 minutes or 60 minutes. I would hope he can, but I guess with that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jesse Zardes and then again Altidore for a half or for 30 minutes or something like that.
If that's what happens, if it's Zardes starts and then Altidore comes in for 30 minutes again, I think we should be really worried. Because I think the quarterfinal will be June 30th. It's only a few days after this final group stage game. If we've got to the third game of a tournament and Josie Altidore is still not deemed fit enough to play, I think that's a major, major problem, to the point where it may have been a mistake to include him on the roster if he's not going to be quite sharp enough.
I'm not going to debate that because I totally agree with you. Yeah, I mean it's especially when you go back to Josh Sargent being left off and Greg Berhalter feeling like they had enough coverage there and that he kind of needed more depth elsewhere.
And the argument was like, it's weird that it's Zardes over Sargent. Maybe it's weird that it was Altidore over Sargent if Altidore wasn't fully matched sharp. So here's what I'm hoping for and what I'm actually expecting. If I had to if you made me choose, I think Josie Altidore starts this game. One, because it's not a high-risk game. As you said, it's less meaningful than the others. So if it turns out he's not fit enough to be really impactful, we don't get knocked out of the tournament. Yeah. Right? So my argument is I think Josie starts and they'll let him go for as long as possible, and we've just got to sit there with our fingers crossed and hope he starts looking really sharp. He's got sharp in practice, and we've got fully fit Josie Altidore ready to score goals through the quarterfinals and beyond.
We will see.
Yeah.
I have Josie Altidore as my starter, though. I did put that one down.
Panic me.
I think we have a very similar starting 11, and we've kind of gotten through with me saying I'm not really sure here. I'm not really sure here. I'm very unsure when it comes to the back line as well.
Okay.
Basically, again, I could see it going a lot of different ways. So maybe let's get to that now.
So it seems that Long and Zimmerman definitely have been the starting pair for the first two games. I'm not sure that they're Long was coming in with an injury, right? But now seems fit. So maybe he's the one that sits. That's only just occurred to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think one of them sits, or do you think both of them? I don't know.
I think at least one of them will not start, and Miazga or Omar Gonzalez will come in. I don't know if he'll do the full change and just go, all right, Long and Zimmerman, take a break. It's Matt and Omar's time.
All right.
Yeah.
I have both swapping out. I have Omar and Miazga starting this
I can
game.
see it. I can totally see it because Berhalter definitely trusts Omar Gonzalez. I think trusts Matt Miazga. They also in a weird way, it feels like they deserve to play because there wasn't an obvious starter coming in, and then they haven't been able to play. So maybe it's a case of just getting them on the field so they feel involved in the tournament.
Yeah. I also think we saw what like Long and Zimmerman bring to the equation in terms of their physicality and their passing ability over the first 2 games.
Yeah.
But I think we also saw them get knocked around a lot, and Zimmerman especially got some heavy challenges against Trinidad, so maybe you just give them an extra break to recover and be ready for the knockout round, and bring in your kind of 2 reserve center backs to see what they can do against a team that I don't think is going to be going like front foot, going at the United States every time, but to see how they deal with a counterattacking side that requires discipline and organization.
And the weird argument is, if you were worried about, say, Gabby Torres' pace, then you would choose Aaron Long to make sure you had one really quick centre-back. But I think that's not how this team is being selected. Not by us and probably not by Berhalter.
No.
Yeah?
But see, this is where it gets more difficult, because if you do then swap those 2 center-backs out, suddenly it feels like you have to at least keep one of the fullbacks, which is a position that I feel like is probably the one that needs the most rest, especially Nick Lima. And with that said, I have Nick Lima starting.
I do too.
I have Nick Lima, and then I have Dan Lovitz.
I think he has the same batteries as Paul Arriola. I also think Reggie Cannon did sub Nick Lima out. I mean, he didn't make the decision, but Cannon came in for Lima in the Trinidad game. Not for long, but it means Cannon has been involved in the tournament, and there's not some pressure that like, oh, we've got to play him at some point. You know what I mean? So I think that's why Nick Lima starts. I also think he's kind of key to the system, right? Lima's involvement overlapping down the right wing is key to the system. And it's almost then unfair on, say it's Jordan Morris over Tyler Boyd, it's unfair on Jordan Morris to pair him with the right back that doesn't know the system. You maybe want to give him the chance to play with Nick Lima and see what he can do in the Tyler Boyd role with the Tyler Boyd tools around him, one of which is Nick Lima.
Yes, and as you mentioned, because Reggie Cannon already got a few minutes, that then does feel like, all right, well, Cannon's going to get a few minutes at the end of this one, but Lovitz, you're going to start the next one.
Yeah.
And also Tim Ream maybe could use the rest too.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the youngest man, right? He's Ream like early 30s.
And did do more attacking, at least in the first half against Trinidad. Did get forward a bit more, had to be a bit more mobile.
His best game for the US so far, right? Which is not up against stiff competition, but it is the best I've seen Tim Ream play. I think you're right. A rest for Ream and a start for Daniel Lovitz. Because again, Lovitz has played for Berhalter before, done the job. I think Berhalter just trusts him to do it. So yeah, Lovitz to start at left back.
Yes.
That leaves just one spot. The number 1 spot, the glove wearing spot.
The glove wearing spot, indeed. So could be Zach Steffen again. I'm going to say it's Sean Johnson. I think there is a little bit of rotation there. Although I don't know if Berhalter loves rotating these keepers, because we haven't seen him use quite as many in the friendlies as we saw past national team managers utilize. So, again, would not be surprised for it to be Zach Steffen, but also wouldn't be surprised if Greg Berhalter wanted to just see what Sean Johnson does in his start in a competitive match.
I'm 80% confident it's going to be Zach Steffen.
Why is that?
I think just because he's the starting keeper, and it's, again, keeping as many cogs from the machine as possible, and just building Zach Steffen's confidence, which is, was knocked a little against Jamaica and Venezuela. Now he feels like the starting keeper. I think you just keep him between the sticks. And this, I may be incorrect about this, like fitness coaches may disagree with me, but I feel like playing 90 minutes is not as rough on goalkeepers as it is on outfield players. So you don't actually need to rest him in terms of his physical well-being.
Yes.
I may be wrong about that, but that's what I think.
No, I think that makes sense. And I think
Raymond Verhees would be maybe disagree with me.
Well, part of my hesitation is just that I get nervous about just like one player just suddenly being the anointed number 1. Zach Steffen has earned it, don't get me wrong. I just
you worried about like an Alyssa Naya situation?
Well, I think that's the obvious example of like a person who just becomes a number 1 player and is always starts every single game or most every single game, plays every single minute of this past World Cup or this current World Cup. But if you're in a competitive competition, you want your starter there. I think you want your goalkeeper playing every minute possible, whereas maybe in the friendlies is where you can do a bit more rotation. So maybe in the post-Gold Cup friendlies, we see some goalkeeper rotation, especially if you want to let Zach Steffen get a bit more like accustomed to playing in Germany. So then maybe that's where we see it. So I think you've talked me into Zach Steffen starting this game.
Okay, that means it would definitely be Johnson.
Probably.
So we basically have our 11 there.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only thing is that we're basically saying there'll be 7 changes, which I mean, I think so, right? Because we've got Arriola staying, Pulisic staying, Lima staying, and Steffen staying. That's it.
Wow.
So that seems like a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it was only like 4 of those.
Okay.
I think the big one for me that I will be very interested, it'll be probably the first thing I look for, is it Altidore or is it Zardes?
Yeah, because then we'll know whether Altidore's fit or not, right? Okay. Whomever it is, starting for the United States, what are we looking for in this game? It's a tough question, right? It's worth thinking about.
My answer to that is that I will happily let you say first.
You want me to buy you some time?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I did do that thing where I ask you a question and I already know what my answer is going to be, which is maybe an unfair way of hosting this show, but what are you going to do? the thing I would be looking for is the thing that Greg Berhalter is looking for, which is the phrase he keeps using is progression in terms of the Berhalter style of play. And that is, I think, we call them synchronizations that we've seen him put in place so far. I want to see those happen again, essentially. I think the one you noticed against Trinidad was Christian Pulisic in the left centre attacking mid-role would pull wide. He would take a defensive midfielder with him.
He would drop in if the ball wasn't on, then he'd pull wide. Yes. Zardes would take that spot.
But that would drag a defensive midfielder out and create a little open channel. Zardes would then show into that channel. The ball from a midfielder or a defender would be played into Zardes' feet. Tyler Boyd would, in this case Jordan Morris, would run behind Zardes, in this case Altidore, maybe. And then maybe Zardes is supposed to lay it off, and then we're supposed to get Boyd/Morris in behind. We saw that happen. We saw that attempt to happen 5 times. So what I'm looking for is to see that same pattern, but to see it refined and to see it come off.
All right.
Right?
What
maybe
happens,
just Altidore having softer feet than Zardes might be the thing that makes it come off.
It might.
Yeah.
What happens, though, if we see a different look from the United States, if they don't try to play that way? Does that discourage you?
I'll be absolutely shocked, because I think Berhalter is all about drilling these principles and these concepts of this is the move that we're going to do, this is how we open up space in the opposition, this is the pattern that we do. I'll be really surprised if he goes away from that, because that's been his whole thing. So he's willing to lose friendlies against Jamaica and Venezuela to practice those patterns.
Well, except I guess what I'm curious about is what do we see? If it is Nick Lima, which role is he doing? Is he doing the move more central and be another central midfielder and let other players push up? Or is he staying as a more conventional fullback? If he goes central, then that does change it, because that's not a thing that they did in the last game.
So then there's a different type of rotation where Morris, if he's on the right wing, won't be encouraged to cut inside and be the extra striker, because then we lose the width of Lima out wide.
Exactly.
Right? So, But honestly, I'd be okay with that. If it's a slightly different look, a slight tweak to it, it's still the same principle of trying to move Panamanians around and open up channels and create passing chances. It just might be different. There might be different patterns to the patterns that we've spotted so far. If I can spot some new patterns, I'll be proud of myself, and I'll be proud of you, because you'll probably spot it before me. But I'll also be proud of the US for having patterns that we can spot. So maybe I'll be looking for patterns.
All right. My answer is not going to be helpful, but it is my honest answer. I have no expectations for this game. I really don't. I think that should maybe be clear by the fact that I'm saying there could be 0 changes, there could be 11 changes, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And so I think then for me to say but I definitely want to see this would be a bit disingenuous. For me, it's about when I see that 11, I think that will give us a really good indicator right away. If it is a bunch of change, then okay, so he's rotating some players out. Now let's see if they all function in the same role, or are they doing something different? That'll be what I'm looking at. That if it seems like they're doing the same role, then are they doing it as effectively? Are we seeing the synchronizations? Which I didn't realize we were definitely calling it, but I like it. We're sticking with it. It's synchronizations. I
stole it from Juan Carlos Osorio.
I thought his was rotaciones.
Rotaciones is his literally changing the team every week. Yeah.
But then he wanted synchronizations.
Synchronizations are the things
despite the rotaciones.
Yeah, so synchronizations are the things that happen within games where one player moves this way and it opens space for this player to move that way, and then we know that we're going to do that. So it's like a pre-planned move that the team does.
Shocking that he wasn't more popular. Anyway,
he was popular with me.
He was at times. So I think that is my honest answer. Is I want to see the 11 and then try to evaluate it from that perspective of okay, now we know. Maybe Panama are resting players as well. So it's 8 players rested for the U.S., 7 players rested for Panama. My expectations go way down, and what I want to see is just more so okay, is everybody working really hard? Are we fighting really hard? Does it seem like a comprehensive game? Then I'll be okay with it.
That's interesting, because then my expectations are regardless of the 11, because I expect every player who's been in camp with Berhalter to know the patterns and the synchronizations and what we're trying to do. And maybe that's the thing, is I want to see the second string, guys like Roldan, finally show that they know what's going on. And, Roldan to not have a bunch of incomplete passes, Roldan to control balls quickly and move passes along and get the move going. So maybe it's a chance for these second string guys to prove that they are as good as Weston McKennie.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's a big ask, right?
See, I think that's the confusing thing, right? Because we know they're not. And that's not disrespectful. It's just the truth. I mean, Georgi Mihailovic is not Christian Pulisic. Christian Roldan is not Weston McKennie.
Yeah. It would have been more exciting if it was Dwayne Holmes, right? Because then it's the guy who we think, maybe he's as good. Yeah. We'll find out.
But so then maybe what you look for there is that if it is both of those players starting instead of Pulisic and McKennie, is the system understandable and approachable enough that those 2 players can operate within it, and it doesn't look like a massive drop-off? Because that should be part of the system, is that it's not just benefiting your 1 or 2 best players, it allows everybody to play in a more productive way that then hopefully leads to better results. So maybe that's the other one, is that if it is full rotaciones, then we can know, are the other players who are coming in at least mostly up to the challenge?
Yeah, I've added the only bit of Espanol to US Soccer, I think.
See.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about with this game before we move on to an ad read and then Glassdoor?
No, I really hope we see Josie Altidore. I really do.
Yeah.
And I hope we see a fit, ready-to-go Josie Altidore. Because as I said, some of the touches, some of the fitness looked questionable in that last game. Maybe that was just, again, shaking the rust off, and he'll be back to it for this one.
One more time, the game is 9 p.m. Eastern. It's in Kansas City. It's in Kansas. Yes. I don't know where Sporting Mercy Park is.
It might be Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah,
Missouri.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's 9 o'clock Eastern kickoff. It's on Fox Sports 1.
It is.
It's USA Panama. We will be reviewing it after the game.
We will.
We'll probably be wearing Grip 6 belts while we do it.
I'm wearing one right now. Wait, no, not. I'm wearing soccer shorts. Otherwise, I would be wearing one right now.
I saved the day.
There we go. Lovely.
Yeah, I got up to Showtime.
You could have just told me that you were wearing it. I would have believed you.
I like to give proof.
I mean, if soccer shorts needed belts, I would be wearing a Grip 6 belt. Yeah. Fortunately, they don't.
Here's my testimony.
It's too hot in Richmond for full clothing.
Here's my testimony for Grip 6 belts.
Yeah.
As I think I've mentioned a couple of times, because of all the health stuff this year, I lost a lot of weight really quickly. I suddenly became very reliant on my belts to literally hold my pants up, right? They would have fallen down.
Yep.
And so I really got a feel for Grip 6 belts, me tightening it to a point where it would keep my suddenly baggy pants on, and then it didn't move.
That's key, right?
That is key, and also surprising, because most other belts don't achieve that. They always, especially leather belts, always have that bit of stretch, like the hole will get a little bit loose, and things will be looser than they were when you put it on 2 hours ago.
Yep.
Grip 6 belt stays tight. It has saved me a fortune in not buying new pants.
Plus, you don't have to make your own belt holes now. It just adjusts, and that's the easy part about it, because the strap slides in, then it's locked in place. The badger teeth hold it there. It will never ever move until you decide that it's time for it to move.
Yeah, never ever is scary. Right?
Yeah.
It is once you decide to release it.
It's a finger trap. It's there forever.
It is like a finger trap, right? And there's only one way out of it, and as long as you know that quick move,
that got real sinister
it's
real
easy
fast.
Enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. But it does sound terrifying. Yes. But if it is locked in place forever, which it won't be because you can do it yourself, but if it were, they do also have the guarantee. Anytime, any condition, any reason, they will swap out that belt and give you new parts, give you a new belt if the situation requires.
Do you think they've ever had anyone call in to activate
they mail themselves back?
They mail themselves back, and the any reason is, I've been trapped in this for 2 months.
I hope not.
Please get me out.
Because scissors exist, so I would be concerned if that were the case.
These things are tough enough. I'm not sure scissors would do the job.
Blowtorches exist?
Yeah. I'm not going to try it out. I'm not going to ruin my
Let's try it right now. Let's try it right now.
If you'd like to buy a Grip 6 belt, you can go to... There are 2 ways of doing this now. We've changed it up a little bit. Go to grip6.com/TSS, and you will see an available discount there to get, I think, 35% off a 3-pack. So if you're going for multiple belts, that's the way to go. grip6.com/TSS, and you'll get 35% off the 3-pack of belts. If you want to buy just one belt, maybe you're just trying to try it out, see, does this thing really hold my pants up like Daryl says it does? Then just go to the regular website, grip6.com, GRIP6.com. When you check out, use the discount code TSSXX. The XX is 2 Roman numerals for 20.
Yep.
That gets you 20% off. TSSXX for 20% off at grip6.com.
All right. Thank you very much to Grip 6 for sponsoring today's episode. One more thing we wanted to talk about, which has been in the news, I think bubbling up over the last week or so, is the US Soccer Glassdoor story.
Yes. Oh, I nearly opened the show with a fake Glassdoor review of working with you.
I'm glad you did that.
It was too long and elaborate, and I just wanted to get straight to the game.
Also, it would be very telling if there were negative Glassdoor reviews about the Total Soccer Show, since we have 2 employees.
Yeah, it would be. It would definitely be one of us.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so maybe we should explain to people what Glassdoor is. So Glassdoor is essentially a website where you can leave reviews about the company, anonymous-ish reviews about the company that you work for. So that, for example, if I was thinking of going to work for, let's just pick a company here in Richmond, Altria, right, a big company here in Richmond, I could look at the Glassdoor reviews and see, what's the workplace culture like? What do people who work there think about working there? And if it looks like a living nightmare, I would not then apply for that job at Altria. Right?
Yes. it is worth noting here that if we're trying to be like fair about this, that does then lend itself to more often negative reviews, because it is sort of
not always. I've seen some positive reviews on.
You've seen some positive reviews, but I think a lot of times you'll find more negative than positive because it's people who are leaving jobs. And I do think that it's the opportunity to kind of vent about the things that frustrated you if you're leaving a job. So I think it does attract more negative reviews and very honest reviews, I think, at the same time, which can then be negative, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and to put this in context, because people may have missed the story, right? It's been big on Twitter and all that, but I think there would be lots of people listening to the show who don't know about it. There have been many Glassdoor reviews left about the US Soccer Federation over the past couple of months, and they've been kind of consistent in their themes, and they've been overwhelmingly negative.
This is true.
Right. So can we hit on some of the themes that were in these reviews?
We can, but I first want to say one thing that I think is important to note here, and it's a credit to Andy Doss and the New York Times, who had this story last week when it started to kind of gain some traction, and were basically sitting on it because they were trying to confirm. Because to write an entire story to accept as truth anonymous reviews that could have been written by one employee about a company would be a bit unfair, to say the least. So they have spent the last, it sounds like, week or at least few days contacting anonymously, should be said, current employees.
People fear for their job. I assume they can't say, it was me, Darryl Grove, who left that terrible review of the place that I work.
Exactly. And they have...
Taylor would hand me my papers pretty fast.
It would not be good. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's a thing we could do, but I'd find out. And I think basically they allowed themselves to be scooped in order to be able to confirm via like some contacts with some current employees that it's more or less accurate, these reviews.
So we have sort of a lot of heft behind the idea.
I shouldn't say more or less, I should say mostly accurate.
Yeah, we have a lot of heft behind the idea that these reviews are don't come from just one person leading like a trollish campaign. It is the general consensus within the US Soccer Federation is what is reflected within the reviews, which I think we should now enumerate. Is that the correct word?
Yeah, because some of these complaints are fairly common workplace complaints. And like I have... While it does sound like it can be very challenging, that it's very long hours for apparently low pay, or like I guess proportional to other jobs, low pay, that is to me like the more standard stuff that you would see on Glassdoor on the negative side. Yeah. It seems the one positive that stood out that I found surprising is apparently very good healthcare with US Soccer. That was one that was noted in every review as the healthcare plan was very good. But then there's the ones that like specifically talk about the atmosphere, the environment within the headquarters.
And the leadership structure.
And talk about specifically current CEO Dan Flynn and potential future CEO Jay Berhalter.
Who is current CFO, right? Or Chief Marketing Officer,
But is his like the heir apparent to that CEO spot.
Yeah, so the big thing is that Dan Flynn, the current CEO, has announced that he is retiring, right? And US Soccer are theoretically doing a big search to find Dan Flynn's replacement as CEO of US Soccer, which, by the way, is a lot more influential than people maybe realize, right? The US Soccer president is always the high-profile name, Sunil Gulati or Carlos Cordero. But let me illustrate this with, do you remember when they were going to sack Jurgen Klinsmann after the, what did we call it, the weird playoff we had with Mexico in...
the CONCACAF Cup? Is that what it was?
The CONCACAF Cup. After we lost that, they were going to fire Jurgen Klinsmann, but then Dan Flynn needed heart surgery, and because he was unavailable, they didn't go through with firing. This is a confirmed story.
It's a great system.
Because he is that influential, right? So this is how important the CEO job is. It also, apart from hiring and firing managers, it sets the entire workplace culture, right? So and the thing is that it looks like they're going to essentially promote from within Jay Berhalter. And from what I understand, these negative Glassdoor reviews are nobody within the organization wants that to happen. So this was like they wanted to get the word out that the workplace culture is bad and we want it to stop being bad.
And as evidence of that, I can't remember if it was March or May, definitely a month that starts in M. That's when these reviews started popping up.
September?
Which yeah, sure. I don't think that's it because March and May don't equal September, but yeah, why not? But more so that like it's in response to the pending like retirement of Dan Flynn that now like these reviews are coming out because in order to get like the immediacy of the story behind it.
Yeah, because they want a new culture, a new leader, as opposed to someone promoted from within who's going to just keep going with the same thing.
Right. My point simply that it's not as though these reviews have existed for the last year then suddenly they're coming to light. It's more so they've all come up very recently, which makes it seem like a campaign aimed at getting attention on the kind of state of the Soccer HQ.
Yep. We've been bouncing around a lot trying to get a lot of info out there, but I think we should get to like some of the types of complaints that are in there. So you mentioned long hours for short pay and essentially US Soccer taking advantage of people's passion for soccer by sort of working them half to death, right? So that's one of them. But a lot of it was about the the communication style of the leadership, right? Wasn't there one story about they went on a retreat and a lot of the employees sort of were asked, like, what do you see as problems that we can fix? And everybody talked about the lack of communication between different departments. And then eventually, apparently, either, I can't remember if it was Berhalter or Flynn, stood up and said, well, I'm just upset that no one talked about the success of the NWSL and us winning the World Cup. And all this stuff about bad communication is bull, swear word, and just dismissed the entire thing. So it's like employees wanting to make the workplace culture better, being sort of just dismissed out of hand and told your opinion doesn't matter. Yeah,
I mean, it was the atmosphere of bullying, I believe, is the kind of more or less consistent refrain there, which, that serves as an example of, and that, again, to me, is far more disconcerting than long hours, low pay. Because that feels like the number one reason.
Also not great, though, long hours, no pay.
Yeah, but it's the number one reason why you leave a job, basically. Yeah. And I feel like every company that I've worked for that I've left has been like long hours, not enough pay to compensate for those long hours.
And the expectation that you would sort of work overtime just because you're lucky to have this job. And I think that was a lot of the reviews complained that people were constantly told, you're lucky to be working for US Soccer because we're US Soccer and this is this great thing. It's soccer in America. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's taking advantage of people's passion.
It is, and I think that's where I do have a problem with the hours, where like when it gets strangely when it gets into like the close monitoring of are you working 60 or 70 hours a week, because that's the expectation, even if we're not necessarily going to say that. That's
we are, by the way.
What do you mean?
Us.
You and I? Oh yeah, but that's part of the job.
But that's our choice, right? No one's making us do it.
No, exactly. But it's like, but that's also, we don't have a job description, but if we did, it would include that sometimes it's going to be like that. And I think like that's the way companies maybe sometimes cover themselves, is by saying like, well, it's 40 hours usually, but sometimes it might be more than that. And it sounds like then like when people get hired, it's usually like, give it a couple months and we'll see how long you make it till you get burned out, because it's always 60 hours, not sometimes 60 hours.
Here's something I saw recently that's somewhat related to that idea as well. US Soccer, I think, themselves tweeted out a photo of when the game is on, like we all stop work and watch the game, right? And I think it was one of the recent US Women's National Team World Cup games. And it was, because US Soccer House is actually just a big old house, right? So it was one of the big rooms in there. They had a big screen, and it was everybody sitting at tables watching the game, but everybody had their laptop out and everybody looked miserable. Which is like suggests to me that it's not like, all right, it's it's one of the main things that our job is about. It's the US Women's National Team are playing in a World Cup. Everybody stop work. We're going to go and enjoy it as a team and watch it together. Instead, it's be in there, but you've got to still be working on your computers while you sit and watch the game.
Which again, it makes sense to me if your job is social media or updating the website or updating the match tracker or anything like that.
But not everybody's job is that, right? This is a room full of people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so then there is, again, it goes back to, this is my opinion from what I read, not necessarily like what was specifically written. It felt very much like an atmosphere of, you don't have to, but you probably should, and it felt a lot like,
and that's a terrible
you're free.
feeling, right?
You're free to watch the game. Like, it's a very important game, but if you don't think that you have enough work, then go ahead and watch the game. Like, it has that vibe of a little bit like, and also we're watching to see if you're not doing work.
Yeah.
It definitely does not seem like the most fun of environments.
All right, to play devil's advocate, why is this a problem? Like, a bunch of people are unhappy with their jobs. A lot of people don't like their jobs. Why is this a problem for soccer? Like, maybe there's an argument, shouldn't these people be working overtime to make sure soccer advances in the United States? Just to be clear, I don't believe any of these arguments, but I'm putting them forward as a conversation starter.
I mean, like, my honest answer is that I'm not going to work for US Soccer. So a lot of those concerns don't personally affect me or will never affect me. So long hours, low pay, like, it's I would wish that it were better hours and better pay for people so that it was a more attractive job, but they're still going to be able to find people. That's kind of the reality of the business. It's why so many websites are so kind to offer you write for free to get more experience and to get your name out there. I mean, so like, but the reason why it bothers me, the reason why I think, like, we were texting last week about talking about this very issue.
Yeah.
The reason why I really wanted to do it is because of the culture aspect of it all. That a lot of the criticisms about like the status quo and about preserving the kind of the way things have been and keeping certain executives at the top, and that those executives benefit from a lot of the decisions.
They get paid like $700,000 something a year. Right?
I mean, it's fine. That's, executives make money, but it's more so to me. It's that that doesn't feel like then a recipe for change. It feels like, yeah, we're going to keep doing what we've doing because it's beneficial to us and it's been beneficial to the Federation, but it doesn't mean that women get equal pay, that there's better financing for facilities, that we get better grassroots support. It doesn't mean that anything necessarily changes.
I think that's the correct answer, is that if you've got a bunch of unhappy employees and a leadership structure that seems just concerned with their own power,
and almost seems so concerned with it that they're willing to, when new employees come in and are really motivated to change things up, are basically like discouraged from doing that in order to keep doing what they've been asked to do.
Yep, but that creates a culture or a situation where US soccer is not as effective as it should be.
Yeah.
Like, this may be one of the reasons it's a broken workplace. Maybe one of the reasons why the hiring process took so long.
This is
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, and that's
it may be one of the reasons why there are soccer pitches that don't get built with US soccer money. It may be one of the reasons why all kinds of things that should be US soccer's responsibility either aren't happening or aren't happening as efficiently or aren't happening as quickly as they could. Like one, because the culture at the workplace is weird, so things don't get done. Two, because you end up not getting the best people, right? Well, you literally don't get the best employees if it's a miserable place to work.
And they mentioned that like a lot of there are many jobs that haven't been filled, or there are new jobs that are going to be created, or new hirings that are going to be made. But it requires
good employees leave.
But
that's the worst.
But it requires a new CEO, and that's the point. Is that because there's no CEO there, there's lots of stuff that isn't happening yet, and so that's also part of the problem. Is that until they can get that sorted, they're not dealing with a lot of the other issues they need to. And so there's then this idea of like, well, they'll just move it along really quickly. But then that also is held up by the fact, I think Grant Wall tweeted this and Andy Doss confirmed it, that they have approached outside candidates to take over the CEO spot. The problem being that the U.S. Soccer is currently involved in several different lawsuits, which is not an attractive situation for a new CEO to come into. You want to come in with being able to like incorporate your ideas and change things up and have a new way forward, and not be like, okay, but first we got to resolve a whole bunch of legal battles. It doesn't really lend itself to new ideas. It lends itself to people who've been there, who are kind of immersed in the issues already.
Yeah, it's like coming in as president, you have to fix the economy instead of doing what you want to do.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then also, it seems like if they're going to stick with the people who maybe have already been there, like the best way I can explain this in my mind that it bothers me is, like, I used to work at a bar where there was no, like if you wanted water, there was a big water cooler at the end of the bar, but because it was a fairly popular establishment, we'd run out. And so in the middle of your shift, you had to go refill it so that people could have water. And the new manager who came in was like, well, why don't we just hook up this thing so that there's always water, and then we never have to refill a thing. And the owners were like, yeah, sure. That was an issue we never had to deal with again. From a major inconvenience to yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if those owners in that situation had been like, well, no, it's just how we've always done it, and it's what works for us.
Yeah. I like it that way because it just looks good.
But also then it's not the owners who are in there on a Friday night when it's packed having to refill a water jug. It's the employees. And so like I guess that's what I get at, is that it feels like if the culture doesn't change, if it's the same people there and there's no real motivation for anybody to continue to push through new ideas, then you're going to end up having a bunch of unsatisfied customers because they can't get water. Only in this case, it's a bunch of unhappy people because they don't feel like their voices are heard and tickets are still $60.
And I honestly think this explains a lot of the complaints that we've had about US soccer. I think I briefly referenced this earlier. The whole thing of like the one nation, one team, and then also that phrase in Spanish, and then sort of having a Spanish section of the website, but there's nothing on it, and then it eventually disappears. And like thinking you're going to have a Twitter feed in Spanish, but then that also disappears because there's no content on it. It's a lot of things that don't get done, essentially, right? And that to me is really worrying, because now it looks to me like if it was a better workplace, these things would have got done. Yeah, I think now we have the reason for some of the complaints we have about US soccer.
Yes, we do. I would still say, though, that it's a lot of anonymous reviews. We personally don't know. I mean, maybe we know some people who work at US Soccer, but like not in a way that we could call them and be like, hey, is this true or not? Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. So I don't want to just say like, and therefore everybody in a leadership position at US Soccer is culpable for this and everything's bad. What I will say is that like I found myself kind of debating this of like, but is this like, is it still worth talking about on the show? And the reason why I felt like it was is because I care about US Soccer. I care about the organization, and I want it to be the best thing. And,
of course.
And so it's not, this conversation isn't meant to like just like attack US Soccer and the Federation and kind of condemn it for every decision it's made. It's more so that we want US Soccer to succeed. We care about the Federation very deeply. And so when this stuff comes out, it's that much more disconcerting because it makes it that much harder to feel like the Federation is truly representing everybody the way we want it to.
I agree with everything you just said. We tried guessing Berhalter's lineup earlier. Can we guess how this all pans out? Do we think there is some new leader comes in that all the staff likes and the workplace culture changes and everything improves? Because that's what all these Glassdoor reviews are about, right? It's essentially trying to make that happen. Or do we think the same old people are in charge and this flares up and then dies down and everybody just keeps going because they want to keep cashing their paycheck, essentially?
That one.
You think that's what you put your money on?
I think so. I think there'll probably be some public outreach. I think there will be maybe some like surveys conducted with U.S. Soccer employees, and maybe they'll look at like what can we do to improve conditions, and we'll probably hear about how employees their opinions are being incorporated. And I think that's the kind of PR side of things, so that everybody thinks things are happening, or at least enough people think things are happening for the story to go away for a while. And then, I think it probably kind of continues on.
How about some optimistic middle ground where it is the same old people in charge, but this like Glassdoor mini revolution, the Glassdoor revolution, gets their attention enough that they look in the mirror, they look in the glass wall and think, oh, okay, maybe we do need to change some things, make some concessions, be more open. Like maybe this is a bit of a wake-up call for US soccer workplace culture, even if it doesn't involve some like wonderful new executive coming in and revolutionizing everything. I
appreciate your idealism. And remind you that it's been a while since you worked in a corporate culture.
All right. Fair enough. Should we end it there, or is there anything else you want to talk about with this?
That's a fun place to end corporate culture and sadness. Yeah.
Then I will remind everybody that US men's national team versus Panama is Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern.
This has been quite the chat. Daryl's hair has gone.
Please still watch it.
Daryl's hair has gone from normal Daryl hair to what I can only say is basically flock of seagulls at this point. That you've got, like, the sides are straight out, and then you've still got the swoop in the front.
There's some product in it, but I found this conversation somewhat stressful, so I've been, like, running my fingers through my hair and pushing it up,
When I had
slightly electric shocked, right?
A little bit. When I had my hair longer, it goes very curly, like ringlet curly, and so I would forget that, though, and, like, when I would have it pulled back, but then be working at a computer all day, I would, like, be running my hand through my hair constantly. And then when my wife would come home, because I was working from home at that point, she'd be like, are you okay? Because, like, the front of my hair would just be froed out, and the back of my hair was, like, pulled back. It was a strange look that I had going on.
Say, hello, Doc Brown.
Yeah, a little bit.
Welcome home.
And I said, the Libyans, and it was weird.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow after USA versus Panama.
Don't give Biff the almanac.